Hello from the winter wonderland of the upstate of South Carolina. Our first snow in 3 years. It's beautiful, other than the fact I have to drive on these roads back home now. So that's going to be a little rough, but hey, while I'm here, while I'm waiting for the car to warm up, waiting to see if they want me to pick anything up on the way home, I wanted to talk about the NFL playoffs. They're going to start tomorrow. Winter weather makes you think of NFL playoffs. Well, not all the time. We don't see that as much as we used to, but, you know, it's always fun to see a playoff game in the snow. I remember that Green Bay game against Seattle, 2007. That was cool, seeing that big snowstorm and all that, and then playing in that. But so I want to talk about this year's playoffs, the teams that are in the playoffs, the first-round matchups, and what every team in the playoffs, in my opinion, have to gain and lose by being in the playoffs. I've made some notes about this. So try to have a little bit of a coherency here. I'm also going to try to make some predictions for the first round. God help me. So to the teams that I predicted to win, my apologies. If you pull for those teams, my apologies for this epic jinx I'm fixing to unleash upon them. So sorry, get this car warm for me. So I want to start off with the AFC. So it's very difficult to predict games unless the Chiefs are playing. They're not playing because they're the number one seed, or not playing this weekend because they're the number one seed. They're the one AFC team that has a bye week. So what do they have to gain and lose this postseason? They have everything and nothing to gain. If they never win another game, their legacy is set in stone. 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, historic. Was it 4 or 5 AFC championship games, 5 or 6 AFC championship games since 2018, historic. If they never win another game, they won back-to-back Super Bowls, which is rare. And like I said, if they never score another point in their lives, we'll be remembering them forever. But what they do have to gain is everything, which is immortality. If they can be the first team to three-peat in the Super Bowl era, that will be a feather in all of their caps that they can keep forever. And they will be legends among legends. And most importantly, that'll be important for Patrick Mahomes and his potential GOAT debate for being the best quarterback ever. He's going to have a hard time overtaking Tom Brady. Tom Brady has 7 championships, and he also has the 2 head-to-head playoff wins over Patrick Mahomes. His second to last year with the Patriots, the last championship run with the Patriots, he went to the Super Bowl by beating Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs at Arrowhead on a freezing night to go to the Super Bowl, which they won. And then 2 years later at the COVID Super Bowl, when he was playing in Tampa for Tampa, in that Super Bowl, he beat Patrick Mahomes head-to-head. So he's got the 2-0 advantage, so Patrick Mahomes has to, in theory, get 8 rings. But if he can get that 3-peat that Tom Brady never got, that could actually increase his odds or increase his argument for being the best ever. So he actually has quite a bit to gain. So don't underestimate the Chiefs. I don't know if they're out of gas this year or if they're just if they're playing just hard enough to win these games to save their energy for the playoffs, and they're just waiting to unleash it all. I don't know. But we'll have to see. They're my personal pick. They just seem to be able to win. They know how to win. They know that they know how to win, and I think that confidence and knowledge is going to take them a lot of places. First AFC wild card game I want to talk about is the Los Angeles Chargers. Hey, I didn't say San Diego. I'm proud of myself. The Los Angeles Chargers go to the Houston Texans. As far as what they have to gain, the Chargers, they're kind of playing with house money a little bit, and obviously they have a lot to play for with what's going on in Los Angeles. My prayers, obviously, to everybody that's been affected by those wildfires. It's horrible to see so many homes and people's, possessions and dreams and hopes just burn down overnight. I hate that. But they've had a very great start for their first year with Jim Harbaugh, and I really think they have a very good future ahead of them. So they're kind of playing with house money. And like I said, they're going to the Texans. The Texans, it's going to be important to them to see if they can make the next step. They've not made the conference finals yet. They're obviously an expansion team in 2002. They had a pretty unremarkable first 10 or so years. They've had these spurts, though. They made the playoffs in back-to-back years in 2011 and 2012. Then again in 2015 and 2016. And then they made it last year and this year. And like I said, each time they've kind of fell back to earth after that to either being really bad or mediocrity. Can they make that next step? This is a chance for them. They have a generational talent, C.J. Stroud. They can do great things with him. So they really need to, try to make some noise in these playoffs, I think, if they really want to kind of establish themselves and gain some confidence. The other game, the second game in the AFC, is the one that's really intriguing to me, the Steelers at the Ravens. Rivalry game, you throw everything out the window. On paper, it looks like a huge mismatch. The Ravens, they're at home. They've been red hot to end the season. Looks like Lamar's going to win another MVP, unless they're gun shy about giving him the MVP since he's flamed out in the playoffs both times he's gotten in the past. Has a 2-4 record, which I'll get to here in a second. But in rivalry games, you throw all that out the window. The Steelers have been ice cold. Pittsburgh Steelers have been ice cold in this year. Colder than the snow out here. But again, you can just throw that out the window. The Steelers actually have a surprisingly a lot to gain, because since they've lost that Super Bowl in 2010, they won the Super Bowl in 2008, made it back in 2010, lost to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and that just amazing team. No shame in that. Had a really difficult time since then. The last 7 seasons from 2018 to present, they have gone. Their record is 9-6-1, 8-8, 12-4, which was a good year. 9-7-1, 9-8, 10-7, and 10-7. They've made the playoffs 3 times over that span, all in the wild card, and all were losses. So it's been a very, very middle of the road for such a proud and historic franchise over these last few years, and for Mike Tomlin. And if you want to look even deeper, the 13 seasons since they lost that Super Bowl. So in these 13 seasons, this is their 7th playoffs they've made. They have, they made the playoffs in 7 of those seasons, in the 13 seasons from 2011 through 2013. They made 1 AFC championship game and lost. They made 2 divisional rounds and had 4 wild card losses. Put that in a little bit of perspective. My Carolina Panthers, who nobody's going to mistake for a juggernaut at any point in time, in their 13 seasons between 2003 and 2015, they made it to they made 6 playoff appearances, 1 less than the Steelers have made in their last 13 years. But in that 13 season span, they made the playoffs 6 times, made 2 Super Bowls and lost them both. Made another NFC Championship game, which they lost, and made it to the divisional round, or had a first or second seed straight to the playoff, to the divisional round 3 times. So yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers have a lot more to play for than I think a lot of people realize. They kind of need to get back on track here. Obviously, Russell Wilson, after his 2 disastrous years in Denver, having a decent year, even though the end of the year wasn't so good. He has a lot to prove. The Ravens, they have everything to prove. They've had good record after good record after good record. Like I said, it looks like Lamar is going to win his 3rd MVP unless they're gun shy because of the way his previous 2 playoff runs went after winning the MVP. Lamar's got to prove he can get it done in the playoffs, period. He's got a 2-4 playoff record in the NFL, made it to 1 conference championship game, lost 3 times. 3 of those 4 losses were at home with home field advantage. And in college at Louisville, he won the Heisman Trophy and was 1-3 in bowl games. So he's got to prove he can do it on the big stage. That's something I think a lot of people are missing out on. Last year they finally made it to the AFC Championship game after a first-round bye. But at home, they lost to the Chiefs, who played a very lethargic and uninspired game in the AFC Championship game. And Lamar and the Ravens are even more lethargic and uninspired. And they've got a great team. They've had a lot of great teams since 2018, and they can't get it done in the playoffs. So they've really got a lot to prove, in my view. And the other AFC games, the Broncos at the Bills. Now, the Broncos, I'm sure they're playing with a lot, because they've not done, this is their first time in the playoffs since 2015 when they beat the Panthers. So I'm sure pretty much everybody on that team was not on that team. So they've done a lot of losing. I remember last year, or maybe it was the year before that, after a really bad loss to Russell Wilson, I can't remember his name. They have a really good offensive lineman. He was, just down and out. You could just see how much it hurt him losing. All the losing they've done over those years. So now they have a chance to break that. And Sean Payton has the chance to show that, has a chance to really put himself among the coaching legends. Because, if he can take a second team and kind of resurrect them the way he resurrected the Saints from nothing And if he can resurrect the Broncos from 8 or 9 years of futility, he can really do a lot. And he can also prove that he was right that it was Russ, even though Russ has been doing pretty good in Pittsburgh. But he has a lot to prove. But they're playing at the Bills, and the Bills have, quite a bit to play for. They've been in 7 of the last 8 playoffs since 2017. 2017, they made the playoffs after a long drought, and but they've still not made the Super Bowl. They've lost to Kansas City a lot, and it's just, I feel like it's time for them to kind of step up or step out. And, Josh Allen, I feel like, has all the ability in the world. I think he should have been the MVP last year. They might give him the MVP this year. He has a good argument for it as well. And like I said, if they are trigger shy about giving it to Lamar Jackson again, then we'll see. But to me, they really need to come out with some fire. Kansas City may or may not be down this year. It's hard to tell whether they've been coasting or whether that's just all they have. But to me, they have a lot to gain. As far as my AFC predictions, those 3 games, I think the Texans are going to take care of business at home against the Chargers. I think there's just a little too much lack of experience with the Chargers and not having been there yet. And I think it's just a good start for the Harbaugh era. I'm taking the Ravens over the Steelers, but I'm scared about that one. I got to admit it. I'm just counting on the fact the Steelers have been ice cold and just haven't gotten done the playoffs a lot, even more so than the Ravens. Even though it's going to be a blood rivalry game. And I have the Bills at home against the Broncos. I have the 3 home teams winning. I just think the Bills have the experience in the playoffs, and I think they're going to be a little bit hungrier to make a statement and make it far. On the NFC side of things, the Detroit Lions have the number 1 seed. They have quite a bit to play for. They can really cement themselves as legends, especially in Detroit. The Detroit Lions won the championship in 1952, 1953, and 1957 with Bobby Lane, the legendary Bobby Lane. They traded him away in 1958, and he famously said they will not win a championship again for 50 years. Well, 50 years is 2008, and they've not won one in the 17 years since, or 16 years since. So, whatever it is. So, they're due. I like Dan Campbell. I like Dan Campbell a lot. I feel like his coaching style is going to do him wonders, do well, and I look for some good things for them. The way they played that final game against Minnesota, to me, showed a lot. Now they have home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and or throughout the NFC playoffs, and I think that's going to serve them well. So they have a lot to gain. I mean, they don't want to just be the losers anymore. Them in Cleveland have been, the losers for so long. This is their chance to separate themselves from that and make themselves a respectable franchise for the first time in my lifetime, and gosh, my parents' lifetime, since they were toddlers. So they have a lot to play for. The Packers go to the Eagles. Now, this is an interesting one because, the Packers see if they're ready to make that next step with Jordan Love yet and to prove they can do it without Aaron Rodgers. My understanding is Aaron Rodgers' last few years at Green Bay, they were not very happy with him. The players, the locker room, the coaches, et al. I'm sure they really want to make a statement. They beat the crap out of the Cowboys in the first round in Jerry World last year, but they kind of exposed the Cowboys too, so they have to kind of prove that's not a fluke. Meanwhile, the Eagles, they've had some playoff disappointments too. They had that, crazy run to the 2017 championship. Carson Wentz got hurt. Nick Foles took over and was the hero of the day. One of the most heartwarming stories we've seen. But, they made it back to a Super Bowl, lost a very, tough Super Bowl there. Had some more playoff disappointments since then. And, it's time for them to prove they can make that next step. They got Saquon Barkley, who I know wants to do something and prove, after all those years kind of wasting his career in the New York Giants. I think he's got a lot to prove. So I think they're going to be a little bit hungrier. So I got them winning that one. Washington, the Commanders, or as I like to call them, the Redskins, they go to Tampa Bay. For the Redskins, it's their first run with a very, very young team and a young quarterback. Very inconsistent team. When they're on, they're very, very good. When they're off, it can get kind of ugly. So it kind of depends on which team shows up. They're going to Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield, I'm sure, is motivated beyond motivation. It's really hard to put into words just how motivated Baker Mayfield is, because he knows and he understands that it's his time. He's been left for dead by Cleveland. My Panthers left him for dead because the Lord knows it was his fault we weren't doing good. And, the Rams didn't want him because they had Matthew Stafford, which is understandable, but at the same time, there's a lot of pride involved there. So I think Baker's going to make at least one really good statement game. I think it's going to be this one. And he might make a second one, too, in the second round. I don't know if they're going to be a Super Bowl team, but I think, Baker's going to really, really reestablish himself as a top quarterback in these playoffs. So I have them winning at home, and I do have the Eagles winning at home as well. So far I've picked all home winners, but this is where I end that here, which I'm technically there's no home team. The Minnesota Vikings, with the second best record in the NFC, have to go on the road for the playoffs because they lost to the Lions. Got beaten up pretty good when they had the chance to. They play the Los Angeles Rams. Now, again, because of the wildfires and everything that's going on, they're going to have to move that game to Glendale, Arizona, where the Cardinals play at the Arizona Stadium, in Phoenix or Glendale or wherever. So it's not technically a home game. Plus, Los Angeles has never really provided a great home field advantage in football. Just because it's a huge stadium, and it's just hard to really kind of get that. The Vikings, for Sam Darnold, this is his chance to show that he's a good quarterback. He's played on some bad teams, the Jets and the Panthers. You tell me two franchises over the last 8 or so years that have been more tied to futility than those two. There's probably a couple, but that you can add in there, but they're in there. And he got left for dead by them. He got picked up by the Vikings and is absolutely taken over. And well, I'll tell you, if I'm Kirk Cousins, it's ugly. The Rams have a lot to play for, too. Like I said, for their city that's been burned down by the wildfires, and for Sean McVay, the coach, and for Matt Stafford, who wasted his career when the Lions weren't good, the way Barry Sanders wasted his whole career, the way Calvin Johnson wasted his whole career. Matthew Stafford did get out, and he got a Super Bowl in 2021. And if he can get a second Super Bowl, he will really cement himself among, one of those quarterbacks you'll be talking about for a long, long time. And Sean McVay, at a very young age, has a chance to get his second one and cement himself as one of the great coaches. So they actually have a lot more to play for than you realize, but they've not been, their record's a lot worse. So I'm picking the Vikings in this one, especially now that it's not going to be played in Los Angeles, the travel and all that. So that's my predictions there. Thank you for watching. Hey, if you have any comments, if you disagree, like I said, leave a comment. I'd be happy to talk to you. Even if it's negative, I'm here to listen. So, thank you guys, and I'll see you soon.